So I just got asked my 15th bazillionth question about Garmin inReach, rightfully so. It's a confusing system, especially if you start to dive deeper than just the normal standard functionality. And in this video, what I'm going to do is share with you not only the questions I get asked the most, but the questions I think will be most valuable for you to hear the answer to. So if you're a new inReach user, this should all be very valuable. If you have an inReach and you just use the basic functions, hopefully I'll answer some questions that maybe you didn't know you needed to ask, so that when you're out in the field and you need to use it, you know what to do when you don't have old Google there to ask the question to. So hopefully this will be a very valuable user or video for all inReach users. Now, this is not affiliated with Garmin in any way. They're not sponsoring me. They're not promoting this video. Don't get free gear from them. This is purely user supported. So thank you for everyone who supports the channel and videos like this. And if you're liking the video, if you can click that little thumbs up, I appreciate it. And if you have any questions of your own that I don't answer, feel free to leave them underneath the video on YouTube and I will do my best to answer them. Question number one, the question I get asked probably the most: when is it okay to hit the SOS button on my Garmin inReach? And it's a good question. It's one that people get very passionate about. I'm going to relay the answer that I got from one of the busiest search and rescue departments in the United States, the Los Angeles County Search and Rescue Department. They said to hit the SOS button, or it's okay to hit the SOS button when you're unsure of your outcome. And I will qualify that with, it's okay to hit the SOS button when you're unsure of a safe outcome, right? So if you're hiking and you get hurt or you get lost, you don't know if you can make it home okay, then it's okay to hit the SOS button. Now, an advantage of having something like an inReach, which is a two-way satellite communicator, is that even if you hit the SOS button, you're not necessarily getting people sent out to you. You could call and have some sort of a medical condition, and you could get a consultation from the IERCC, which is the dispatcher, and they might tell you that you don't need to be evacuated, or you can self-evacuate. So those are benefits of having an inReach where you can do that two-way type of communication. It doesn't always mean a helicopter is going to come and take you away if you hit the SOS button, but obviously it will if it needs to, and I'll talk about that in a second. Now, Garmin released an interesting article. I'll put a link to it under the video as well, but they had 10,000 inReach rescues and they released some data about all of those rescues. And about half of them are happening because of medical situations or injury, right? And I think if you haven't hit SOS, you're probably thinking, I'm gonna, if I hit my head on a rock and there's blood shooting out of my head, I'm gonna have to hit the SOS button. It's not always that cut and dry. I had a reader, an elderly reader, and she said she was backpacking for a few days in the wilderness and she was normally fit, but she had been fainting and her heart rate was up. So she basically hit the SOS button, did a two-way text conversation with the dispatchers, and they decided to get a helicopter to come get her out of there because of her age, because of the condition. It turns out she was okay, but it gives you an idea, like when you're not sure whether you're okay or not, then it's okay to talk to the emergency dispatchers. And again, it doesn't mean somebody is going to be sent out to get you necessarily. And I'll talk about that in a minute or two. Other thing, big reason why people hit the SOS button is because they were lost or stuck, right? So you're out hiking, you don't know where you are, and you need to get home safely, and you need help from SOS. Another good story, or not a good story, but a story I had from a reader. They went on a meetup group hike, which is, can be iffy anyway. Backcountry hike, off trail, and the group left them and they didn't know where they were. There were no trails there. They were in the backcountry. They were basically just following another person on this meetup group who left them, and now they're stuck in the middle of nowhere. They ended up calling for SOS and they were given instructions on how to self-evacuate, and then emergency responders met them. So another scenario where it could come in handy. You don't have to be cliffed out in order to get some sort of help from your inReach device. The third big one that was interesting on here that I didn't even think of is vehicle emergency. So your car breaks down in the middle of nowhere, you don't have a cell phone signal, you hit SOS and you tell them my car is broke down or flat or whatever it might be, and they will send help out to you. So I thought that was interesting, and when I read that, I started carrying my inReach with me in like my everyday carry backpack, just in case I was traveling or I was driving and I was out of range. I could always at least have a conversation with people who are emergency dispatchers and get some sort of information on what I should do when, whatever, my car breaks down, I'm lost, I'm hurt, whatever it might be. When you need that information, when you're unsure of the outcome, it's okay to hit the SOS button. Next big question I get is, how long does it take to get rescued? In general, it'll take several hours, and there's a few factors that will go into that. First is your condition. Are you, acutely sick? Or is it, life-threatening situation? Is it something like a rolled ankle where, it's not, you're not going to die in an hour if it's not addressed? So there's that. There's your location. Are you in a place where you can be evacuated by an aircraft? Is it something where you need to send a ground crew in? Is it something where people are going to have to bring climbing equipment to get to you? Where are you and where can you get to? Also, the weather, is it possible to get to you right now? And also the capacity of the search and rescue team. So if search and rescue is handling a bunch of other critical emergencies and yours isn't critical, it might take longer to reach you. So a few factors that go into it, but you should definitely be prepared to wait overnight. And whenever I talk about hiking essentials and being prepared for the outdoors, my kind of benchmark is, do I have enough gear with me in order to stay overnight? And it doesn't mean like having a big comfy tent and a sleeping bag and, cooking wear and stuff, but do I have an emergency bivvy? Do I have like a tarp to keep me dry? Do I have warm layers, a beanie, so that I can basically wait overnight? And that could definitely happen. I know of somebody else who got basically stranded in a hut, in a summit hut up by San Jacinto. The weather was bad. They had to stay in the hut for a couple of days while they waited for a rescue. So, be prepared to stay for a few days. Really, your body needs water, in a day or two, but you could live without food for many, many days. So have enough to stay overnight. Know that a rescue is going to take probably several hours, and know that it's not always going to be a helicopter as well. People also have an image that wherever they are, a helicopter is going to swoop in and hoist them up and get out of there. There's a few options. You can get a helicopter. That's definitely happened before and happens often. Also, it might be a team who comes up with a litter, like basically like a gurney to carry you out of there. Or it could be that you're given directions on how to self-evacuate. It might be that you can't get in there and they're going to tell you to go somewhere to meet, a first responder or some other type of rescue personnel. So just know that it's not always going to be a helicopter. 2 times when I had to hit the SOS button, it wasn't for me, it was for other people. But the one time it was up on White Mountain. There was somebody who had acute altitude sickness. They were laying on the ground. They couldn't get up. They were vomiting. They're basically immobile. I hit the SOS on the inReach, and a military helicopter came. And who rescues you is another question. It just depends on where you are and what resources are available. Another time I hit the SOS was on the 99 switchbacks on Mount Whitney above High Camp. There was somebody else with acute altitude sickness. I hit the SOS button. I talked to the emergency dispatchers. They sent a ranger up from High Camp to walk up to me. When the ranger came up to the person, then I went back down. So a lot of different scenarios on how long a rescue takes or what it all looks like. So just be prepared, I think, to wait in case you have to, wait out weather or something, and you should be okay. Hopefully help will get there eventually. The other question is, can I hit the SOS button for someone else? You definitely can. If you look at the data, you can see that it's been used for other people or other people in a hiking or outdoors party. So you can definitely do that. I mentioned earlier that I had done that in the past. What happens is you talk to the emergency dispatchers. You basically tell them what's happening about the injured person or the situation, and then they'll dispatch a rescue or advise you on what to tell that person from there. So you're not necessarily responsible for them. You're not going to be charged for their rescue if they get charged for it. You're really just more of a good Samaritan reporting an incident to the first responders. Does the inReach work all over the world? Yes, it's covered by the Iridium satellite network, which has coverage over the entire globe, including the poles. I actually had a reader email me a picture. They had bought inReach Mini and they used it at the South Pole. If you look at that Garmin report that I referenced earlier, it says that over 150 countries that they've done rescues in, so it'll work wherever you are. One thing to note is some countries you're not allowed to use it, or you might have to register it or do something else to do that. I'll put a link to the Garmin support article underneath the video where you can check that out. But I noticed some countries like India and Thailand and China, you might not be able to use it, or you might have to do some sort of other level of registration. So check that out if you're traveling before you go somewhere, but for most places, it should be okay. Can I share my location without having to do location tracking? Location tracking requires a higher subscription level than the basic level, but there's sort of a hack or a workaround that you can do. You can go to the Explorer website and you can opt in to share your location via map share, via a link, and then whenever you send a preset message or a text message on your Garmin inReach, it will include a link to your location. So if you just send those messages at regular intervals, then whoever is getting those can sort of follow along where you're going without you having to pay for a higher plan that includes location sharing. And if you have the lowest plan, know that if you are going to do that location sharing and that breadcrumb trail, that you will pay for every point to do that. So if you do want to use that feature, I'd recommend getting the next plan up from the bottom, which is what I have, and it works fine. Can I receive a message on my inReach? Yes, but it's a little tricky. So unlike a Zoleo, which has a dedicated phone number and dedicated email address, the email and phone number from your inReach device will, think of it as it's going to change every time that you turn it on and you start using it. So the thing to do if you want people to reach you on your inReach is to send out a preset message when you first start your hike or whatever, and just say, if you need to get in touch with me, reply to this message. And then they can reply via email or reply via text, and it will reach you. You can also enable messaging on your MapShare page, where there's a little web interface where people can send you a message. And you also have a Garmin inReach email address that's unique to your device, but you can only use that for inReach to inReach communications. You can't use like Gmail to your inReach, because why would that work? But it's probably a good technical reason, but it is confusing. So easiest thing to do, like I said, just send out a preset when you first start and say, if you need to reach me, text me back at this number, and you can do it that way. Now, your inReach isn't like a cell phone where it's constantly checking for new messages. It'll check every hour automatically. Or if you're doing location sharing, let's say you're doing it at a 10-minute interval, it'll check whenever it basically sends at that interval. So if you're sending one every 10 minutes, it'll check every 10 minutes for new messages. You can also trigger a manual check for new messages. So, not the easiest thing, but once you kind of get the hang of it, it's okay. One other thing to know is that you have a message count as part of your subscription. Now, preset messages are unlimited, so those don't matter. But if you're doing an ad hoc message or quick text message, those you have to pay for. They come out of your message allowance. When people reply to you, whether they're replying via the website or replying to a preset message or an ad hoc message, whenever you get an incoming text or message, that counts as a message. So you might be charged for that, or it might be included in your plan. But just so you know, replies you have to pay for in one way or the other. Here's one I get a lot. I sent a message and it didn't go through. Now, this can obviously be a lot of things, but the general workflow that you're going to want to do is you want to look at your device and make sure that the message was sent. So you can look at your messages tab on whatever device you have and see that it's been sent. Also, check to see if the number you're sending to is a virtual number or a Google Voice number. There are some systems like Google Voice that inReach doesn't support, and it will not go through to a Google Voice number. I'll put a link to the article underneath the video if you wanted to see what that's all about. Also, make sure that the person's not blocking you because it's going to come from a number that's not you, right? Your Garmin inReach is going to have its own number, so sometimes that can go into spam. So just make sure that it's not going into spam. And if all else fails, you can file a report with Garmin where they'll look into it. But that's generally the workflow, and usually one of those steps will, resolve the issue. All right, next one I get asked a lot. Can I send a message from one inReach unit to another one and share my location? The answer is yes, but it's a little bit tricky. So first thing you want to do is get the other inReach device's email address. Put that in your contacts or so it'll sync into your device, but you can only send a message from inReach to inReach using those email addresses. Next, you want to make sure that you're sharing your location with your messages, which you do on the Garmin Explorer website. I know, there's a lot going on here, I told you. And then you want to make sure that's synced onto your device before you go out, so make sure everything is synced up. Then when you send a message from one inReach to another, and you receive it on the other inReach, then you have to launch your Garmin Explorer app on the recipient's ends, right? And if you look at the message, underneath the message is this little thing that says map share. If you tap on that, it will bring your location of the message sender up on a map. Now, If you're in the backcountry and you don't have a cell phone signal, you're going to want to download the maps in Garmin Explore for offline use first. I told you this wasn't super straightforward, but if you download the maps for offline use, you put the other inReach email addresses in your contacts. It's really not too hard. You can just send messages back and forth and use your phone to see where the other person's sending from. But a couple hoops there, it does work. Another big question I get asked is, can I use my Garmin inReach without an inReach subscription? And the answer is, you can use everything on your unit that doesn't involve communicating over a satellite. So depending on what type of inReach you have, you're probably going to have some kind of navigation functionality, maybe some maps, whatever it might be. Any of that type of thing you can use without a subscription. But the second that you want to do any kind of a communication function over the satellite, which would be preset messages, regular text messages, location sharing, SOS, or weather, all of that requires an inReach subscription to work. So good to know, but you can, let your subscription lapse and still use it as a navigation device if you'd like to. Another thing to note is that you can't activate your inReach from out in the field. You really need to be in Wi-Fi range or cellular range, have some kind of civilization to tether onto in order to activate your inReach. So make sure you take care of all that before you head out in the field. So that's it. Hopefully you learned a little something. Hopefully you feel a little more confident in using your Garmin inReach. If you have any more questions, just leave them underneath the video on YouTube. I will do my best to answer them. And if you want to dive a little bit deeper on when to hit the SOS button, I have a video I did with the help of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department Search and Rescue that goes a little bit deeper into some of the scenarios and some of the what ifs on when to hit the SOS. I'll put a link to that video up on the screen now, so check that out. And otherwise, guys, be safe, have fun, and I will see you out on the trails.